So here's my own personal thoughts right now. I still think that the general was abducted, but not by aliens, by human beings, working at a very secret level within our own government to discredit McCasland and to contain the imminent threat that he posed by virtue of his career as an insider with that background and knowledge and the advisory work he had done and continued doing. After all, when he retired in 2013, right after that, McCasland briefly worked as an unpaid consultant for a group researching UAPs and UFOs. I believe that was the To the Stars Academy at the time, working with Luis Elizondo and Tom DeLong and Christopher Mellon. Now, the fact that he refused any pay to work as an advisor for them, to my mind, speaks of a man who held strong enough convictions about public disclosure that he did not want to take away from their funding any money that they had, any resource that they could throw at this, so that they would have every chance of succeeding. And in my opinion, it was at that point that he possibly received his first warning from the secret government. So his work promptly dropped off and went nowhere. One of the last groups he worked for since 2019 was Riverside Research, a group that manages advanced sensor data, the very tools that are used for UAP and UFO detection. And these tools are often the focus of transparency bills, such as the UAP Disclosure Act. Only recently, in the last few months, did McCasland step away from this and other groups he had been advising, reportedly due to brain fog. But I think his brain fog was fear. It is well known the government threatens whistleblowers. It's also documented what happened to Albert Bender, to August and Dominic Lucchese, and others who knew too much and were written about in the years after the Roswell crash. Fear was, in my opinion, more likely what was behind McCasland stepping away from those groups in recent months. In my opinion, it indicates that he had received another warning as the president's efforts began to assemble a UAP transparency task force on the advice of Luis Elizondo earlier last year. Because of the timing of this whole matter, I tend to think this is more likely what's really behind McCasland's disappearance, just days after the president publicly announced his order to immediately identify, declassify, and release all records on UAPs and extraterrestrial life. What an extraordinary order! And suddenly, the man at the top of that short list and uniquely qualified to work on fulfilling such a sweeping order suddenly finds that he can no longer live with his brain fog and walks off with a .38 revolver to end it all and vanishes without a trace. Well, maybe to some it seems more likely that he did indeed suffer from some unnamed mental health issue recently, and that he did leave home that day with the intention of never returning. To me, it makes far more sense that he would have been warned since his retirement to stop working and advising on UAP disclosure, but he never completely stopped. He found ways to continue helping discreetly. But sometime after the president's 2025 decision to form a UAP transparency task force, I think McCasland received a final and ominous warning. And this time, it was along with his wife. And out of concern for her safety, he stepped away from the groups he'd been working with once and for all. From that point, he would have been living in some degree of fear and even paranoia about those watching his every move. He may have begun carrying a firearm at that point. And then came the president's astounding order. It was abundantly clear who would be called up to task. And warnings would not keep the general away from disclosure this time, not at the president's order. In the hours after Trump's announcement, billions of files stored on UFO-related databases were reportedly deleted, scrubbed before they could ever be reviewed. This is the level to which the secret government is willing to go to keep containment on the whole truth of UFOs. 7 days later, they came for General McCasland.